In recent years, the Ontario curriculum has been updated to be more in line with the ideology of the progressive left. Anywhere from grade 1 to grade 12, the word identity leaps out at us. Here's a printout I did. This summarizes these key areas. Identity is a key part of the Ontario curriculum, especially in the social studies, history, and geography program. Then it itemizes heritage and identity. Students learn about their identity in the context of their local, national, and global communities. Roles, relationships, and responsibilities. Students learn how these are connected to their identity, culture, and sense of self. They also learn how to treat others and the environment with respect. First Nations, Métis, and Inuit identities. Students learn about the identities of these groups and how they have been affected by colonization and the residential school system. And there is equity studies. Students learn about equity, diversity, and social justice and how to analyze strategies for positive social change. Gender studies. Students learn about the social construction of gender and the dynamic nature of gender roles and norms. World cultures. Students learn about the nature of culture and how cultural identities are acquired, maintained, and transformed. And also, here is something interesting. The Ontario curriculum also includes culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy, which aims to affirm students' cultural and social identities. So this is what is being pushed. And this is what pushes other things out of the way. Back then, the communist leadership of the Hungarian Socialist People's Republic had similarly ambitious goals for changing the identity of the entire population. Marxist propaganda permeated everything, but the indoctrination of the kids in the school system got special attention. The schools were supposed to be the birthplace of the new socialist person type. The reactionaries, the enemies of the people, the bourgeoisie, etc., and the traces of the past had to be eliminated. Then, unburdened by the past, the young people with the most advanced identity would surge and achieve fantastic progress, a final solution to all of humanity's problems, a worker's paradise. Marxist indoctrination was not based on good, rational, and compelling arguments. Educators went out of their way to graphically depict the exploitation and suffering of the victims, the proletariat, and the heartless cruelty of their oppressors. The propagandists expected that their literary and cinematic masterpieces would fuel a revolutionary rage to wipe the slate of history clean. Their messaging was clear. Feel for the victims, hate the victimizers, and fight for social justice. My grandpa owned a small farm that was ridiculously small by Canadian standards, maybe like 2 acres. The adobe farmhouse, the driveway, and a clump of trees, which he called the forest, further reduced the usable land for crops. Yet he was able to produce more wheat, fruits, and eggs than what the family needed, so he had some cash revenue from the market. It was an ideal production model because it sustained the family and produced food for city folks. He was labeled a kulak, which was a Stalinist term for landowner peasants, whose big sin was that they stood in the way of collectivization. Well, he was clearly a class enemy. His farm was taken away from him, and to avoid Stalinist-style atrocities, he became a faceless proletarian, disappearing in a city slum where later I was born. He worked at construction sites as a night watchman, not doing what he was best at, producing food for the people. So, how well did socialist re-education change my identity? I lived in my grandpa's story. I saw what they did to him. How was he a greedy and evil oppressor, a class enemy? He was a victim. My soul is the spark, the character, the spirit I was born with. My family recognized it quite early in my life. My grandma said, "Oh, this kid is just like Uncle Johnny." Well, I never met this legendary great uncle of mine, but at least I know what character traits I inherited from my mom and from my father. My parents actually did parenting, and they formed the pillars of my identity. My extended family and good role models around me showed me the way. Just one example. Uncle Balazs, a neighbor from a couple of houses down from us. A shrapnel destroyed one of his legs on the Eastern Front. As a casualty of the wrong war, he was shunned by the socialists and got no support. Every time I saw him hobbling on the sidewalk, I felt sorry for him. But he always smiled at me. I still vividly remember the hundreds of profound impressions when the little me just stood with wide open eyes and learned something important. So, is this how life is? Is this what people do? And it wasn't just gripping and dramatic experiences. It was great joy too. There were a lot of real kids around me, and by today's standards, I had a shocking level of freedom to explore the world with them. People learn from people. I was 10 when my teachers, who were the agents of the socialist regime, discovered that I didn't have the politically correct identity. The maverick pioneer squad leader was promptly demoted, and what followed was not pretty. These true believers were convinced that it was possible and even necessary to forcefully break people in. They did it with impunity, and of course there was a huge oppressive apparatus behind them. It didn't work. They failed. All they achieved was that I learned how to deceive them by projecting a false identity. My true identity was already set. And it never changed, and never will. It is utterly foolish to expect that by the manipulation of external influences, it is possible to change anybody's God-given identity and steer the person toward a preferred outcome. I can collect all the things I remember, and I can attempt to describe in full detail what it means to be me. It'll be a good approximation of my identity, but very far from the lived experience. My wife got to know me quite well, and there's no cultural barrier between the two of us. But even after more than 4 decades, she learns new things about me. Now, the closest natives to me are the Mississaugas of Squaw Island, a branch of the Ojibwa Nation. This is their chief. I know them and I respect them, but I will never fully understand Mississauga identity. For starters, I don't speak their language. I never walked a mile in their shoes. Educators cannot expect a Chinese Canadian girl living in an affluent suburban enclave to fully understand the identity of the Scugog Island people. She will not alter or improve her identity because the natives made such a huge impression on her. We need to appreciate and respect each other, not become each other. Well, this is my all-purpose tweed jacket for semi-formal occasions. I feel comfortable in it. It's not too dressy. It's me. I do have this jacket for weddings and funerals. That's it. Now, if everybody was doing a dress-up game on the A deck of the Titanic, and I was forced to go along with it, I would feel uncomfortable. It's not me. I don't belong there. When people overdress for an occasion, it is immediately noticed and possibly ridiculed. But here is an interesting scenario to consider. Somebody gives me an over-the-top loud suit, something like this, and talks me into wearing it to a social event. I'm hesitant, full of doubt. Is it me? But at the event, I become a sensation. Everybody compliments the special suit. I'm in the center of attention and women start flirting with me. People will praise me for how brave I am to wear this suit that gives me a new identity. And you know what? I will concur. This is the new me. I'm brave and bold, and I'm glad that I put this suit on. My popularity, however, will be short-lived. If I wear a loud suit to the next event, I will not be a sensation anymore. People have moved on, and I'm just repeating my old gig. It's Marge Simpson trying to fit into high society. A new identity cannot just be put on like a jacket. Dabbling in identity politics is fraught with danger. Who decides what identities are desirable and what identities are harmful? What are the guarantees that identities are accurately presented to young learners in a balanced and unbiased manner? What I see is that educators are enamored by romantic notions of the noble savage, the cool global do-gooder, the champions of social justice, and so on. Now, most people don't know about my persecution and refugee story. I do not advertise it because I don't want to be seen as a victim, and I don't want to live my life as a victim. Adopting a victim identity leads to self-victimization. The role of the family in the kid's identity formation is diminishing. Parents should not allow progressive school officials and various experts to take over and know what's better for their children. Kids cannot grow up in isolation. If they're left in front of screens, who is doing the parenting? Who are the role models? Who makes dramatic impressions on them about what it means to be a good person, a human? The Ontario curriculum sounds very ambitious, even on paper. The implementation of it is a really sad thing to witness. Changing the world has never been easy. So I'd like to urge everybody to take a good look at the result of social reconstructionist efforts. What does history teach us?